Hello everyone, welcome back to another session of Dark Souls PvP, and this time I'm back on the bow cleric. Now, the reason for this is because on my most recent video with the bow cleric, I received quite a bit of hate on that video, and I know the reason why. It's because of Wrath of the Gods, but I'm curious, I really am. Now, a lot of people on the video in the comments were complaining about Wrath of the Gods, saying how it's a bitch move, how I fight like a little bitch, stuff like that. And yeah, it's annoying to fight. I realize that this build is really annoying to fight. It was in the title of the last video, I'm more obnoxious than a spear user. I'm telling you up front, it's annoying to fight. So, yeah, I don't know why people were saying stuff like that, but back on topic, Wrath of the Gods was really the main issue people had with this build, and not the playstyle, which I thought was strange. Now, if anything, I think the playstyle of this build would be more of a cause for annoyance than Wrath of the Gods. So, I want to do a little bit of a test, really. That's the point of this video. I want to test things out and see what you guys think. Is it Wrath of the Gods, or is it the playstyle that comes with the bow cleric build? And for the sake of argument, I am not using Wrath of the Gods in this video. I'm using Emit Force, Great Lightning Spear, which I later switch out for, Gravelord Greatsword Dance. And I'm using Force, which I'm really starting to love Force. I love Emit Force. And now I'm really starting to love Force. And I believe it was the Sunlight Blade on one of his more recent videos. He mentioned that he's starting to love Force also. And you know, I'm really starting to see where he's coming from with that. It's a really underused, handy little spell. So I'm definitely enjoying it, especially on people with low poise. It's just fantastic. And with all of those castings, I mean, you get 21 castings of it, so it's just great. But anyway, the bow cleric, for those who are not familiar with this build, it's just, well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a build that only uses the bow, and occasionally a mail breaker. Occasionally. And the reason for the mail breaker, because I know someone's going to ask, the reason for the mail breaker is because it's weak enough to cause me to use whatever weapon I'm trying to focus on using. So if you're ever trying to learn how to use a specific weapon, then I highly suggest using the mail breaker as a backup, because it's weak enough to encourage the use of the weapon you're trying to learn to use, but the moveset is familiar enough to a rapier, or the S-stock, that it's still useful. Plus those running attack pokes are really, they're helpful, especially if you're in red Tearstone range. But anyway, other than that, the bow cleric, it just uses an occult composite bow. It has 3 attunement slots. I want to remake it so it has a few more. I'll get to that eventually. I like to switch up the miracles on it, and in the last video I did on it, I was using Wrath of the Gods. I had on Replenishment, and I don't remember what other miracle I had. That's not important though. The main issue was the fact I had Wrath of the Gods, so oh well. That's the point of this one, see what people think now that I'm not using it. Because really, I like my bow builds a lot, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other people do too. I mean, they're not to fight against, of course, but to watch them. Because they're different. Not many people on YouTube, not many other uploaders even consider trying something like this. And I guess I was one of the few insane enough or stupid enough or something like that to actually think that this would be viable in PvP, and it was. Now, it does have its downfalls. It's got some pretty big cons, and those would be I can't trade hits. Now, and when I say I can't trade hits, I mean if someone pulls out a bow, I can't trade hits with them. I cannot even trade hits with someone else who is using a bow, because I'm using a bow that does split damage. Chances are they'll be using a plus 15 bow, and they'll just be out damaging me. Plus, they can put on a Leo ring and get counterattack damage on me with it. So that is just something I can't do. I cannot out damage someone who is also using a bow. and for the most part I can't outdamage someone who is staying right up on top of me and hitting me, which is why this build relies so heavily on dodging and other miracles to keep people away, which is why I liked using Wrath of the Gods, because not because of the damage, but because of the fear factor that I could just use it at any given point. And really, that's what the most helpful thing about it was, in my opinion. It wasn't meant to be a main source of damage. My miracles are not meant to be a main source of damage, and that's why I'm not using anything to buff them. I'm using the Dark Moon Talisman because, I mean, why would I use a lesser talisman? But I'm not using Crown of Dusk or the Dark Sun or whatever it is. I'm not using the Ring of the Sun's Firstborn, and there's just no point in me needing them. It's not meant to be the main source of damage. So, really, I am just coming back to the main point of this video. I want you guys in the comments to talk about it. I want to know what you guys think. Is it the playstyle, or is it Wrath of the Gods? Because if it's still Wrath of the Gods, that's kind of... what's the right way to say it? There's other things worse than Wrath of the Gods. I mean, it's been out for so long now that if it's still Wrath of the Gods, if people still have issues with that, then I don't know. I mean, I can see why you would if you're not that experienced of a PvPer, but there's so many other things worse than it. It's just, yeah. So, anyway, the bow cleric's cons, I was starting to talk about those, I think, but this fight reminded me of it. And one of the main cons, aside from the fact I cannot trade hits, would be if you're fighting someone who is playing unlocked. They can just run around all day and not have a problem at all, because all of the bow's attacks, I mean, it's firing an arrow, it's linear. And before I go on any farther, I actually had a fair bit of luck with this build when I was playing in this session. This is the start of a fight club, and I ended up completely sweeping the fight club. I think it's like 5 or 6 fights. It was a small little fight club, but it was a pretty good time. So shout out to all these guys that I fought against. You all were awesome. Had some really close fights with a few of you. So good job, guys, and yeah, thanks. Now, anyway, the bow build, the bow cleric, it is really not good against fighting people who are unlocked, fighting people who flip, fighting against spear users. That's a big one. Spear users or any other sort of pokey weapon user. It's just not a good time, especially if they're flipping. That's just bad. Right there, I got a bit lucky. He hit his sword on the wall, and it would have hit me if it didn't hit on the wall. So that was really lucky for me. I was saying something about, oh yeah, flipping pokey weapon users. Yeah, I'm not good at fighting against those when I'm on a bow cleric or any of my bow builds, actually. It does have a pretty good amount of pros, though. It has relatively low stats, so you can really pump a lot into your endurance and vitality. And I should have more attunement slots. I kind of messed that up. It's also really good at fighting against people who are backstab fishers, and just this guy, he's just circling me, shield up, not doing anything. And then he goes and pulls out a great bow. I mean, come on, dude, what are you doing? But anyway, this build is really one of my favorites, and I really do like my bow builds. And as I was saying before, yes, they are annoying to fight against. So I really do think that people's issue with it was more of the playstyle than the fact I was using Wrath of the Gods. And that's really what I'm curious about, because the playstyle is annoying. I know that. It's in the title of the video. It's annoying. Yeah. Wrath of the Gods, though, in my opinion, that's really only annoying when it gets spammed, because then you can get stun locked by it, and it's just annoying. Now, I never spammed it in that video. The only time I used it more than once in a row is when I was fighting a guy in full giants who used Tranquil Walk of Peace on me. And then I used it 2 times in a row just to keep him off of me until the Tranquil Walk of Peace wore off. So I don't really understand why I got so much hate for it, because I wasn't doing that much damage with it, I didn't have anything on to buff the damage, and my emit force actually hits about the same as my Wrath of the Gods when I hit someone who's in their instability frames from a roll, or coming up from a roll or something like that. It hits about the same. Maybe like a little less, but not that much. So I don't really get what the problem is. Especially since my most recent bow build, which uses sorceries and an enchanted composite bow, especially since that build uses Pursuers and Dark Bead, I received next to no hate on that video. And then on my bow cleric, I was getting tons. Now I know that my bow cleric video, my I'm more obnoxious than a spear user video, is my most popular video with almost 30 some odd thousand views. It's like at 29 something. It's really high up there. It's a lot. And my most recent bow build video with the enchanted composite bow is only at like not even 2,000 yet, but the amount of likes that they have, the amount of dislikes they have compared with the amount of views, I'm more obnoxious than a spear user video has a quarter of the total likes and dislikes as dislikes, compared to like a tenth of them on my other bow build video. It's kind of weird. So really, that's what I'm curious about. I really want to know what you guys think. I like when you guys talk in the comments, as long as it's positive, you know. Actually, that was a really close fight, so shout out to that guy. He almost had me. If he didn't let me off of the wall when he had me, oh man, that would have been bad. So actually, after that was the last fight. I ended up standing around for another 15 or so minutes with this host, just sort of following him around doing the Skuld Shuffle. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, shout out to X-Skuld and his Skuld Shuffle. Yeah, definitely go check out that, because that's entertaining. Now, the unfortunate thing about this fight is my bow actually broke, so I had to pull out the Mailbreaker. And this guy didn't really do much other than spam miracles at me, so I didn't really feel bad about rollback stabbing him all the time. I mean, I'm using a Mailbreaker, so whatever. Mailbreaker is actually a fun little weapon to use. I do enjoy it very much, so it's definitely helpful in a situation when my bow breaks. I was saying something before. I don't remember what I was saying. And yeah. Now this is actually the last fight, so to speak, or for lack of a better term, or whatever. I don't know what I'm trying to say. This is really the last actual fight in the video. The next little clip scene thingy is just a little interesting gank sort of experience I had, and I thought it was kind of funny. I ended up having a good time with Force in it, so I figured I'd include that. But yeah, that's really the end of it. All I have left to say is, please guys, let me know what you think in the comments about this build. Is it the fact I was using Wrath of the Gods in the first I'm more obnoxious than spear user video, or is it the playstyle? Because I personally think it's the playstyle, because that's just, well, my opinion on it. But again, I want to know what you guys think, because your opinion does matter, and I would like to know. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. Thank you in advance for the comments and such, and I will see you next time.